All right, good afternoon. We're going to start with our guest today, and I just want to hope, Fred, can you hear us? Can you turn on your camera?
Yes, both my camera and microphone are on, and I can hear you just fine.
Perfect. And if I can ask the technicians to put you on the front screen, we will be ready to go. Fred, just I ask for your patience. Are we able to put Fred on the front screen? Okay, 1 second. Don't look at me. They're working on it? Okay. C'est le mois d'août. There we go. All right. Good afternoon. We're delighted to see our colleague Fred Kenney, who is coming to us from Istanbul. Fred, as you know, is the interim coordinator for the UN at the Joint Coordination Center for the Black Sea Initiative. Fred, we will let you make some opening remarks, and then we will take some questions, or you will take some questions, rather. Go ahead. Fred, please.
Great. Thank you. Hello, everyone. Really happy to be here. As mentioned, I'm speaking to you from the Joint Coordination Center of the Black Sea Grain Initiative, or the JCC, in Istanbul. The JCC was inaugurated 2 weeks ago following the signing of the initiative on the 22nd of July. The purpose of the initiative is to facilitate safe navigation of ships to and from Ukrainian ports to allow for the export of grain, foodstuffs, and fertilizer through a safe maritime humanitarian corridor for shipping. The JCC brings together Ukrainian, Turkish, Russian, and UN representatives for the purpose of implementing the initiative. So let me walk you through what we've achieved so far. The JCC was established just 5 days after the agreement was signed in Istanbul. I want to thank, in particular, our Turkish partners for their tremendous logistical efforts and support to get the JCC underway and running. The JCC has defined and published the Maritime Humanitarian Corridor, which you can see behind me, I think, as well as the entire route that vessels should take from Istanbul to the Odessa area ports to ensure safe passage. To get it right, the JCC has initiated a proof of concept phase for the first 5 vessels transiting the route to evaluate procedures and identify areas for improvement. We have produced detailed procedures for vessels to follow when participating in the initiative. Those were disseminated to the shipping industry earlier this week. They contain navigational and operational safety rules, rules for notification, and instructions for ship operators and ship owners. Those procedures also cover the security elements and describe how vessels should sail in the designated maritime humanitarian corridor, how to obtain clearance to transit, what to expect when undergoing inspections of the JCC, and how to submit relevant documentation. We have so far authorized 12 vessels to depart the Ukrainian ports, carrying over 370,000 metric tons of grain and other foodstuffs. Those vessels had been stranded in the 3 ports covered by the initiative when the war started. Our priority is to free up pier space in those ports so that empty vessels can come in and take new cargo. We have also authorized the movement of 4 vessels into Ukrainian ports so far for loading. In conclusion, I would like to recognize and appreciate the cooperation and commitment of all the parties, Ukraine, Turkey, and the Russian Federation, to implement this initiative. The last 2 weeks have been full of very hard work, very late nights, with around-the-clock discussions, and everyone involved. Much of the work is quite technical, and it's being done at record speed, but without sacrificing the safety of the ships and the seafarers on board them. This is an encouraging sign for the way forward. The agreement is scheduled to last for 120 days, and we still have much work ahead of us to ensure that the implementation of the initiative translates into real results to address food insecurity around the globe and to stabilize global food markets. We are off to a very good start. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Fred. Edie?
Thank you very much, Mr. Kenney. Edith Lederer from the Associated Press. On behalf of the United Nations Correspondents Association, thank you for doing this briefing. We hope you'll come back. One of the questions that's been raised with the initial shipments is that most of them are going to countries that are not in desperate need of food. I wonder if, obviously those are commercial deals, but I wonder if you could tell us, and sorry, the second issue that's been raised is that shipping companies are apparently not that excited about going into war zones to pick up cargoes. And I see you've said that there are 4 ships that have come in. Can you tell us a little more about where their destinations are and whether there is a growing list of ships that are going to be coming in to pick up cargo from Ukraine? Thank you.
Thank you, Edie. Fred?
Sure. Thanks very much for those questions. They are very pertinent. With respect to your first question regarding the destinations and cargoes of the ships that have come out so far, we're dealing with 3 ports that were essentially frozen in time on February 24th. There was a different harvest coming in. It's primarily corn. The silos are full of corn, and the ships that were loaded were intended for ports that had nothing to do with the current conflict. And so it's imperative upon us now to get those ships out so that we can bring ships in to load cargoes that will be destined for ports that will contribute to reducing global food insecurity. But really, any ship that goes out with Ukrainian grain is going to help the situation. With respect to your second question, in terms of ships not being excited about going in, I think we have seen tremendous interest from ship owners in terms of their willingness to make this transit. But what they needed was the procedures so that they would know what to do. Now, we've released those, and we're expecting to see a big uptick in applications for transit. Indeed, we're aware that there are a number of empty grain vessels sitting at anchorage in Turkish anchorage areas, waiting to arrange the contracts. And once they have their deals arranged, they'll be transiting northbound.
Thank you. Michelle Nichols, Reuters.
Thank you. Thanks, Mr. Kenney. Michelle Nichols from Reuters. You just mentioned you're expecting to see this big uptick in applications for ships going in. How quickly do you think we might see that? And when do you think we might start to see large cargoes of wheat, in particular, leaving Ukraine?
Well, we're seeing steady progress in the number of ships both going in and coming out. For example, today we did the most inspections that we've done since the JCC was inaugurated. We had 5 inspections today, 3 outbound, 2 inbound. And we're expecting those numbers to grow in the near future, as I said, particularly for inbound vessels, as deals are made, charter parties for the ships are arranged, which takes some time. But as those agreements are reached, we expect to see applications coming in shortly thereafter. I can say that we receive literally dozens and dozens of phone calls every day, and emails asking, when can we get ready to go? And we're fielding those. I think, as I said, the dissemination of the procedures to the industry is also going to drive a surge in requests. But it is early days.
And the response so far from the industry to the procedures released on Monday?
We've had actually, I won't say good or bad response. We haven't had a lot of response. We've just had people asking some questions about how to properly implement the procedures, but they are quite detailed, and that was intentional. This was part of the reason that the people at the table and the JCC were working so hard, as we realized that we had to provide a significant amount of detail, particularly navigational detail, to the industry so that they could plan properly for their voyages.
Kirsten, Al Jazeera.
Yes, thank you. You said 370,000 metric tons have left so far. The goal that was spelled out in the initial documents that we received about the initiative said that, if I understood correctly, the goal is 2 to 5 million tons per month. Do you think that that is still possible given what you've seen in these initial weeks? And what have been why has it been slower maybe than you've expected? I'm just doing the math, and I'm admittedly not great at math, but it seems like you're not up to that pace yet. Would love your reaction. Thanks.
Well, I'm not great at math either, but 370,000 tons in a week on the first week, I think is a very encouraging sign. Also considering that we have been moving very conservatively during the proof of concept phase to really test our procedures and ensure the safety of the vessels in the maritime humanitarian corridor. As we gain experience, we also gain confidence that the procedures are working. We're going to be doing a comprehensive review of the procedures early next week to see what needs to be tweaked and improved. And we're constantly learning. So 370,000 metric tons is really the initial phase of this operation, I think is a very encouraging sign. And the goal of getting between 2 and 5 metric tons is achievable.
Edward, China Central TV.
Hi, Mr. Kenney. This is Deju Xue with China Central Television. 2 questions. First one is a technical question. In average, how much time would it take for ships in and out for the inspection? And do you have a plan to shorten the procedure for inspection? And second, we heard this from a long time ago that there might be a WFP ship that carrying all those grains into some places with food crisis. Why that we heard that for quite some time, but actually it's not happened yet. So do you know the reason why that didn't happen, or do you have some extra information on that ship? Thank you.
Okay, thanks. In response to your first question, in terms of time, the inspections take a number of hours, usually 2 to 4 hours, to inspect a ship at the Istanbul inspection area. From there, the vessels need to transit through the Black Sea on a largely open route. They have to hit a waypoint that we monitor to make sure they cross the waypoint, but they don't have a specific route up to the entrance of the maritime humanitarian corridor, which begins roughly off the Romanian coast, roughly at the Romanian-Ukrainian border. Vessels cannot transit the maritime humanitarian corridor at night. between 2100 and 0500. So if they, depending on when they arrive at the entrance to the court, they might have to wait in what's called the Southern Holding Area until 0500 the next morning in order to transit up. And that's to ensure that they have maximum visibility to look out for floating hazards to navigation and that sort of thing. If a ship were to time it right, it takes between 24 and 26 hours for the normal grain ship to get from Odessa to Istanbul going out, and they'd have to undergo inspection, which we're also not doing at night for safety reasons, for the safety of the inspectors. And then they can proceed on their way. So it's a day and a half or 2 days total, which we are looking at our procedures to see ways that we can cut time on the inspection side without sacrificing the accuracy and completeness of those inspections. And we've received several suggestions from our inspectors so far, and we'll be considering those and looking at implementing them. With respect to the WFP, of course, they are working very hard, just like many others in the maritime industry, to arrange charter parties, arrange for ships. I would expect you would be hearing something from them very soon.
Celia de la Varenne, Africa Confidential. Which African country will get the shipment first, and how did you determine which country will get it first? I mean, Africa.
That is not within the remit of the JCC. That is a function of two things. First, what the WFP might have in mind, and second, what the markets are doing. And we're trying not to interfere with legitimate commercial activity in that regard.
Linda Fasulo, and then we'll go to Pam Falk online, and then I think we have to close it up.
Thank you very much. My question is about,
If you could put your microphone a little closer, thank you.
My question is about the vessels going in and out. And which vessels, where are many of the vessels coming from? In other words, which countries are involved in, taking goods out and coming back to get them?
Well, in many cases, the vessels are flagged in a variety of flag states. We've seen Liberia, we've seen Panama, we've seen Turkey, we've seen Malta, we've seen Sierra Leone. So there's been a range of flag state vessels involved. And likewise, the ownership of those vessels varies, and it's from around the globe. Some of the ships, we understand, are going to be running this as a regular route, which is actually a good thing, because as the masters get more and the crews get more familiar with the route, the safer it will be. Others may be one-time vessels.
Just to follow up quickly, has the United States and U.S. ships, owned ships, shall we say, been involved in any of this?
We have not had a U.S. flag vessel transit.
Okay, we'll go to Pam Falk, and then we'll come back to the room.
I am hearing, hey, can you hear me?
Go ahead, Pam.
Okay, the static's off. Thank you, Admiral Kinney, for the briefing. It's Pamela Falk from CBS News. My question is about the contents of the ships themselves. Can you say how much is grain and how much is corn? I've understood that the new harvest is the next to ship rather than those in the silos. And the final piece is on the inspections. My understanding was the inspections were set to, under the agreement, allay fears by Russia of arms. Is the grain itself inspected? My experts say that there can be weevils in the grain if it sits for now 6 months. I've seen, there was a deal that I covered many years ago from on you deal. late and flour got weevils. Is the grain itself inspected? Thank you.
Okay, I'll answer your last question first. No, we don't. We do not inspect the grain ourselves. That's up for the buyers and sellers to do. I will say that one of the factors that we are working through with the inspections of outbound vessels is many cases, and actually really in all cases, the grain is fumigated, which could present a safety hazard for our inspectors. So we have to work very carefully with both the shipmasters and the port authorities to ensure that, one, our inspectors are safe, and two, that we don't take the action during an inspection that would interrupt the fumigation process to kill the weevils, as you described, so that we detract from the fumigation process. So that's something that we're working through as we develop our inspection procedures.
And when was it fumigated? At the time it was put in silos, or since your agreement?
Well, it's fumigated when it's loaded onto the ship. And so we're seeing different situations. We've seen some vessels that were fumigated and sealed back in February, and then the holds were sealed and were not reopened. So they did not need to be refumigated. We've seen some others that were fumigated back in February, and then the holds were opened more than a week ago and refumigated, so we have easy access to those. But now what we're seeing is ships that have been loaded very recently and recently fumigated, and those we have to work more carefully with. Now, back to your first question, the remit of the JCC with respect to inspections is we're there to look for unauthorized personnel and cargo. And really anything that isn't food or grain, foodstuffs, or fertilizer is unauthorized. So we're doing space accountability checks to make sure there isn't cargo that's not authorized. And with respect to personnel accountability, we are looking at crew lists and verifying that the persons on the crew are who they say they are.
All right, and grain versus corn?
Well, I think corn is a grain under the IMO definition.
I'm sorry, you're right, wheat versus corn.
Right. Well, I think we're actually transitioning to that. We actually have cleared the first ship inbound that's going to be picking up wheat, according to our records, and that should occur sometime next week.
Thank you so much. Very helpful.
Alan and then Dulcie. Alan?
Thanks so much, Mr. Kenney. I have a technical question. It's regarding the guidance, the procedures for merchant vessels you released the other day. The paragraph 10 says that if a JCC representative informs the JCC of a threat to the merchant vessel, such as military action, the JCC may take action to ensure the safety of the vessel. Could you please elaborate what kind of actions the JCC could take in this case?
Yeah, I'm sorry. There was a lot of feedback there. If I understood the question, it's what action could the JCC take to ensure the safety of a vessel in an emergency situation? And we do have means of immediate contact with ships. So if we saw, for example, if there was military action in the area of the maritime humanitarian corridor, we could order the vessel to stop or turn around to avoid any danger. That's one example. There are many others. Our watch standards are constantly monitoring the vessels to ensure that they are navigating safely.
Thank you. Dulcie Lembach?
Hi, thanks very much. I have a couple of questions. On WFP, since, we've been hearing about famine conditions in so many countries, what do you, maybe you can't speak for WFP, but what is taking it so long to send a ship in, considering that you've already okayed 4 others inbound for uploading the grain? And on the maritime corridor, have any of the ships encountered floating mines, free-floating mines? And have you found any questionable cargo or crew on any of your inspections? And then under some of these ships, there are flags of convenience. For example, the first one, the Rizzoni, was under a Sierra Leone flag. Are you then obligated to find out who the true owner is? Thanks.
Well, with respect to your last question, no, we are not serving as a port state control authority. We're not evaluating the safety levels of the ship or anything like that. That is for a job for both the flag state and the port state to conduct. Whether or not it's an open register, it's somewhat irrelevant to us. With respect, I'm sorry, I lost the last part of your question. Could you repeat that?
It was about float if they'd encountered any floating mines.
Thus far, we haven't had any safety issues with any of the vessels that transited. None have reported any floating hazards to navigation or anything like that, no.
And then the WFP ship, what's taking it so long? It was the gist of the question.
Well, I think regardless of whether it's WFP or really any entity, it's quite a complicated operation to put together a voyage for a ship to carry cargo. You've got to arrange for a crew, you've got to find a ship, you've got to get the appropriate clearances, which also includes clearance to transit the Bosphorus Strait. So there are a number of steps involved, and we're aware of many entities, including the WFP, that are working on that. But in terms of the specific time schedule for the WFP, I'd really need to refer you to.
Ephraim?
Thanks very much. Around the time the JCC was set up, there were reports about a ship that docked in Tripoli, Lebanon, with Ukrainian grain in it. And the Ukrainian embassy in that country said that it was a stolen ship. There was later a domestic investigation, and they released the ship, and I think it sailed towards Syria. Do you have any knowledge about that incident, and are there any worries about such incidents happening? Thank you.
I don't have information regarding that particular incident, and that is actually not within the remit of the JCC. As I said, the JCC our remit is to confirm that ships going in and coming out are not carrying any unauthorized cargoes, which we've been able to do so far, and also can transit. We ensure that they're transiting the route properly.
Okay, I know, Fred, you have to go back to coordinating. We're going to sneak in 2 tiny little follow-ups, one from Edie and then Michelle.
A very quick follow-up, which was part of Dulce's question. Have you found any illicit cargo, and could you tell us how relations are between and among the 4 parties, since Russia and Ukraine are still at war?
And to answer your first question, the answer is no. We have not found anything that would violate the terms of the initiative. With respect to your second question, I think this is a very encouraging sign. All the parties are really focused on implementing this initiative properly. And I've been extremely impressed with the level of cooperation and coordination that has been displayed. As I mentioned in my opening remarks, a lot of this is very technical work. And what's been impressive to me is to see that all of the delegations have brought a really diverse array of experts to the table. And there's been a lot of respect for the technical expertise of the participants in development of the procedures, regardless of where they come from. And that's a good sign. I think we're making a lot of progress because the technical expertise is respected.
Great. Fred, thank you. You're released. Please go back to your day job, but we really, really appreciate you taking the time and clarifying a lot of very important points for us. And we wish you good luck to you and the rest of the team. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon, everyone.